The Kuki National Army and the struggle for the Kuki people of Myanmar. The Kuki National Army, BAP, plays a central role in the ongoing fight for the survival and rights of the Kuki people in Myanmar. The Kuki people, numbering approximately 1.5 million, have faced systematic repression, marginalization, and violence by Myanmar's military junta, especially after the military coup of 2021. The KNAB, based primarily in the hilly regions of Chin State and Sagaing region, represents the military wing of a broader struggle for self-determination, autonomy, and the preservation of cultural identity in the face of an authoritarian regime. Historical context of the Kuki people in Myanmar. The Kuki people have a long and rich history in Myanmar, with their origins tracing back centuries in the rugged hilly terrains of Chin State and parts of Sagaing region. These areas are of great cultural and historical significance to the Kuki community. Their distinct language, customs, and social structures have shaped their identity over generations. However, like many ethnic minorities in Myanmar, the Kuki people have faced long-standing oppression from the central government, which has often marginalized them politically, socially, and economically. Following Myanmar's independence from British colonial rule in 1948, the Kuki people, along with other ethnic minorities, were excluded from political power, which has fueled frustration and a sense of alienation. The central government's policies of assimilation and centralization further alienated the Kuki people, and despite their historical presence in Myanmar, they were not given the autonomy they sought. The Myanmar government's reluctance to accommodate the diverse needs of its ethnic communities created fertile ground for the formation of armed resistance movements, including the KNAB, formation of the Kuki National Army, and the fight against military oppression. The Kuki National Army, AB, emerged in response to the increasing violence and repression by the Myanmar military. The group's formation was accelerated by the coup in February 2021, which resulted in the ousting of the democratically elected civilian government. The coup ignited widespread protests and armed resistance, as various ethnic armed groups, including the Kuki National Army, took up arms against the military junta. The KNAB, like many other ethnic armed organizations in Myanmar, saw the military coup as a betrayal of the people's democratic aspirations and a direct threat to their cultural identity and territorial integrity. The KNAB's military resistance focuses on defending the Kuki people from the brutal tactics of the Myanmar military, which has used indiscriminate violence, forced displacement, and human rights violations. The KNAB's fight is not just one of survival, but is deeply tied to the desire for autonomy and self-determination. The group's armed resistance is a direct challenge to the centralized control of the military junta and seeks to establish a more equitable and inclusive political system that respects the rights and identities of ethnic minorities. The KNAB's fight is emblematic of the broader struggle for democracy in Myanmar, where ethnic groups are seeking to reclaim their rights from a government that has historically marginalized them. Recruitment of 5,000 Kuki men and women, strengthening the resistance. In its effort to strengthen its ranks and enhance its operational capabilities, the KNAB has initiated a large-scale recruitment campaign aimed at enlisting 5,000 individuals from the Kuki community. This move reflects both the severity of the conflict and the determination of the Kuki people to resist military oppression. The recruitment drive targets both men and women, signaling a shift in traditional gender roles within the Kuki community and in armed resistance movements in general. The KNAB's recruitment effort is multifaceted. It includes not only traditional combat training, but also specialized roles such as intelligence gathering, medical assistance, and logistical support. By training a large number of recruits, the KNAB seeks to enhance its capacity to challenge the military junta more effectively. While this is a necessary military strategy, it is also a symbol of the unity and resolve of the Kuki people, who are willing to mobilize their community to fight for their survival. In addition to military training, the KNAB also emphasizes leadership and community roles, recognizing the importance of every member's contribution to the cause. The recruitment of both men and women marks an important shift in the role of women in armed struggles. Traditionally, Kuki society has been patriarchal, with women typically taking on domestic and leadership roles within the community, but not in direct combat. However, the changing dynamics of the conflict have led to a significant increase in female participation in the KNAB, both in combat roles and leadership positions. This inclusivity reflects a broader trend seen in armed movements around the world, where women are increasingly contributing to resistance efforts and challenging traditional gender norms. The role of women in the KNAB, redefining gender roles in combat. The involvement of women in the KNAB represents a significant change in the traditional gender norms of Kuki society. Historically, Kuki women were not engaged in combat, but played vital roles in community leadership and familial responsibilities. However, as the violence in Myanmar intensified, many women have stepped up to take on active roles in the resistance movement, both as fighters and as leaders. Women in the KNA are actually the most skilled and proficient. Even the local government can rely on that skill. They are not only engaged in direct combat, but also work as medics, intelligence officers, and logistical coordinators. Their roles extend beyond the battlefield, as they also participate in strategic planning and the organization of local resistance efforts. The growing involvement of women in the KNAB is a reflection of their resilience and their determination to protect their community and ensure the survival of their culture and identity. The participation of women in the KNAB also serves as a catalyst for broader social change within the Kuki community. By taking up arms and engaging in active resistance, Kuki women are challenging traditional gender expectations and asserting their rights within both the military and their society. This shift in gender roles is significant not only for the KNABs as well as the rest of the community, and helps us keep the will of the common weal. The KNAB's struggle against the Myanmar junta. The KNAB's primary objective is to defend the Kuki people from the brutal tactics of the Myanmar military. The military's tactics include the use of airstrikes, artillery bombardments, and ground offensives, which have led to widespread destruction and the displacement of thousands of Kuki civilians. The KNAB, while significantly smaller and less equipped than the military junta, has adopted guerrilla warfare tactics to outmaneuver the military and make it difficult for the junta to maintain control over the region. The KNAB's operations are highly dependent on the geographical advantages provided by the rugged terrain of the Chin State and Sagaing region. These areas, characterized by their mountainous landscape, are difficult for large military forces to control, providing the KNAB with the opportunity to use hit-and-run tactics and ambushes to disrupt the military's operations. Despite the challenges posed by an enemy with far superior firepower, the KNAB continues to resist, relying on its knowledge of the land and its strong community support to carry out its operations. The KNAB's efforts are also closely linked to the broader ethnic armed resistance in Myanmar. Many of Myanmar's ethnic armed groups have united in their opposition to the military junta, forming a loose alliance to fight for a more democratic and inclusive Myanmar. The KNAB's resistance is part of this larger movement, which seeks to end military rule and replace it with a system that respects the rights of all ethnic groups. Impact of the 2021 coup on the Kuki people. The 2021 coup in Myanmar had a profound impact on the Kuki people. The military junta's violent repression of ethnic minorities, including the Kuki people, intensified following the coup. The KNABB quickly mobilized to defend its community from the military's brutal tactics, which included targeted attacks on civilian populations, the destruction of villages, and forced displacement. Many Kuki families have been forced to flee their homes and seek refuge in neighboring regions, facing uncertainty and danger. The Kuki people, along with other ethnic minorities, had hoped that Myanmar's transition to democracy would bring about a more inclusive political system. However, the coup dashed those hopes and re-established a brutal military dictatorship. The KNAB's resistance, therefore, is not only about fighting for the survival of the Kuki people, but also about restoring the democratic aspirations of the entire nation. Humanitarian crisis and displacement. The ongoing conflict has created a severe humanitarian crisis for the Kuki people. Thousands have been displaced from their homes, living in makeshift camps or fleeing to neighboring countries. The military's destruction of homes, farms, and infrastructure has left many Kuki families without livelihoods or access to basic services. Displaced persons face the constant threat of violence, while access to food, medicine, and other humanitarian aid is often limited. Humanitarian organizations have attempted to provide assistance, but the military's control over key areas in the ongoing conflict make it difficult to reach those in need. The humanitarian crisis continues to worsen, with no clear end in sight, as the KNAB and other resistance groups continue to fight against the junta. Future aspirations for the Kuki people. The Kuki people continue to fight not only for survival but for the preservation of their culture, land, and identity. The KNAB's resistance is part of a broader aspiration for autonomy and self-determination. The Kuki people seek a future where they can live in peace and security, free from the threat of military repression. This fight is also about cultural survival, as the Kuki community faces the erosion of its language, traditions, and social structures under the weight of military rule. The recruitment of 5,000 new soldiers is a critical part of the KNAB's strategy to defend the Kuki people and secure their future. As the struggle continues, the Kuki people remain determined to fight for their rights, their land, and their cultural identity. Their resistance is a testament to their strength and resilience, and their hopes for a better, more equitable future continue to drive their efforts. Conclusion. The Kuki National Army B's struggle against the Myanmar military junta is not just a military conflict, but a deeply political and cultural battle. The recruitment of 5,000 Kuki men and women reflects the resolve of the Kuki people to defend their rights and their land. As the conflict continues, the Kuki's role in the resistance grows ever more critical. The Kuki people's fight for survival, autonomy, and cultural preservation is far from over, but their determination to achieve peace and self-determination remains unshaken. The KNAB's resistance is not just a fight for the Kuki people, but for the future of Myanmar as a whole. A future where ethnic diversity and democratic values can coexist in peace. Please subscribe Zalengam Media. Thank you for watching.